The meeting is now called to order. Roll call, Mr. Shapiro.
All board members are present.
Thank you. We are going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, but after the Pledge of Allegiance, can we please remain standing for a moment of silence to honor the memory of Xander Whitbrod Rouse, who passed away over fall break. Xander was a junior at Carmel High School, a valued member of the Ice Hounds, and a previous member of the football and track and field teams. His bright and uplifting spirit will be greatly missed. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is our CCS mission statement, and that is that Carmel Clay Schools will provide opportunities for all students to realize their potential in an ever-changing world. Typically up next we have public comment, but this evening we do not have anyone signed up for public comment. So we will move on to our consent agenda. And tonight the consent items include the personnel report, hiring of Steve Starks as custodian, claims, and payroll. And as a reminder, these consent items are part of our business items that we group together. They're routine items grouped together so that we can kind of look at them efficiently and consider them and approve them in a single motion. Do I have a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda?
Madam President, I move to approve consent items 3.1 through 3.5, approval of the personnel report, the hiring suggestion, claims, and payroll.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we will take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. At this time, oops, sorry, moving on. Okay, there we go. At this time, I'm going to request a motion to suspend our regular board meeting and open. We have 4 different public hearings this evening. So these public hearings allow public input, and so we will have another opportunity for public comment on the following: the 2026 budgets, the 2026 capital projects plan, the 2026 bus replacement plan, and number 4, the second preliminary determination public hearing in conjunction with consideration of entering into 1 or more leases with a building corporation, which would permit the building corporation to issue its first mortgage bonds. May I have a motion right now to suspend the regular board meeting and open the public hearings?
Madam President, I move to suspend the current board meeting, the regular board meeting, for purposes of opening the public hearings as you stated.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of pausing our meeting at this point, and we're suspending it to move on to the public hearings? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And as a reminder, per board policy 0167.3, when a public hearing is required by federal or state statute, the same rules followed during a public comment, so when we would typically have our public comment previously, also apply to these, with the following exceptions. Advanced registration is not required, and speakers must speak on the topic of the public hearing. So I'm going to kind of just read the rules. If there's anybody here who does want to do the comment during the public hearings, I'm going to read the general rules for public comment. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer. and must preface their comments by an announcement of their name. Participants, as with our other public comment, will have 3 minutes to speak. Comments may not reference specific corporation employees, patrons, or students. Comments shall be directed to the board, and no person may address or question individual board members. The school board will not act on or respond to questions or comments made during the public hearing, but will take them under advisement. So we'll begin the public hearings with the 2026 budgets, the 2026 capital projects plan, and the 2026 bus replacement plan. On September 8th, Mr. McMichael presented the proposed 2026 budgets, 2026 capital projects plan, and the 2026 bus replacement plan. The board discussed the proposals and authorized the administration to advertise for public hearings. Mr. McMichael, would you like to make any comments regarding these 3 items, which are the 2026 budgets, capital projects plan, and bus replacement plan, before we invite members of the public to
No,
comment?
I have no comments on the budget this
All
evening.
right. Thank you. So at this time, I will open the hearing first on the 2026 budgets and offer members of the public an opportunity to make comments. If you would choose to make a comment, go ahead and step forward, and you will have 3 minutes. Unfortunately, no, 3 minutes. And then please make sure you state your name before beginning.
Okay. So thanks for the opportunity to speak and for all the hard work that you're doing for the budget and all of this work on capital projects. My name is Leslie Webb. I moved to Carmel 25 years ago, and our children had a good education. And so we're grateful for the teachers and the administrators and the hard work that the school board does. So my comments tonight are about the broad, not just one specific public hearing, but it's in regard to safeguarding taxpayer dollars and protecting the future for students as it relates to energy. I would like to urge the school district to incorporate solar energy as well as energy efficiency, and also incorporate environmentally friendly infrastructure into both the budget and the facilities projects, because both can financially benefit from these clean energy and environmentally friendly choices. For example, adding solar to the Smoky Row renovation, adding solar to the new roof section at Carmel High School, and other things. But CCS has the largest, is the largest consumer of energy in Carmel, which is no surprise because you have a dozen big buildings. But it also means that CCS has the largest carbon footprint in Carmel, and this is a threat to our students' future. So I know CCS has a long history of leveraging energy efficiency to manage utility costs and has saved $23 million since 1995. And that's great, but it's not enough. We need to do more to protect taxpayer dollars and the future for our kids and grandkids. As you know, Carmel Utilities, the Carmel Library, the Hamilton County Jail, as well as schools in Fishers, Noblesville, and Sheridan have invested in solar. In fact, in the country, 1 in 9 students attend a solar-powered school. So my first question is, why hasn't Carmel invested in solar? I think that you need to include this in your planning because the ever-changing world that you talk about at the beginning of every meeting means hotter summers, hotter springs, and hotter falls, which means more energy costs for the school district. And energy costs are expected to rise because of the demand for data centers. So solar is a solution. And I know, sorry, I'm almost done. Many schools have used guaranteed energy savings contracts to finance solar, so there are ways to do this. And there's a 30% incentive that schools can take advantage of to make it a wise investment for taxpayers. Thanks.
Thank you. And again, right now, we have the public comment for the 2026 budgets. I will wait and see if anyone else would like to speak. Seeing no one else, I will close the hearing on the 2026 budgets and open the hearing regarding the 2026 capital projects plan, and again, offer members of the public an opportunity to make comments. Okay, seeing no comments, I will close the hearing on the 2026 capital projects plan and open the hearing regarding the 2026 bus replacement plan. And again, offer members of the public an opportunity to make comments. Hearing none, I will close this hearing on the 2026 bus replacement plan, and then we'll open the second preliminary determination public hearing in conjunction with consideration of entering into one or more leases with a building corporation, which would permit the building corporation to issue its first mortgage bonds. Mr. McMichael, would you like to make any comments regarding this one?
I would. I have some narrative to read. I'll abbreviate it. But as I believe you noted, tonight is the second hearing with regard to this. This is for what we've referred to as our 2026 facility projects, and the larger ones include Smoky Row Elementary, a full renovation, Carmel Middle School, a mid-cycle. We have several projects at Carmel High School, and then some final work at Cherry Tree Elementary School regarding the playgrounds. And I believe that's it as far as the outline of the projects. And so the maximum principal for these bonds is $66,260,000. The maximum term of the bonds is 20 years and the lease is 22 years. And the estimated interest rate is 5%. The maximum allowable interest rate will be 5.5%. And I would note that the the net increase to the debt service fund rate as a result of these bonds is expected to be zero, and that is in part because our management of our finances are such that we also have existing obligations that are maturing. So we have bonds going off, this one's coming on, and that's that's been a practice we've had for a number of years. And so finally, the estimated debt service levy and the tax rates over the next 10 years, accounting for the proposed bonds and any changes from existing obligations maturing or ending during that time, and based upon the pay 2026 net assessed value with no change thereafter. And those rates are listed on the screen. And with that, that concludes my comments, and now would be the time to offer opportunity for comment from the public.
So again, I will offer members of the public an opportunity to make comments regarding these plans that Mr. McMichael just commented on. Since there are no comments, may I have a motion to close the public hearings at this time?
I move to close the public hearing.
May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Greg. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will now resume our regular school board meeting. And we are moving on to our action items. Our first action item is item 5.1, which is adoption of the preliminary determination reimbursement resolution. Mr. McMichael.
Sorry, I was on to something else. Well, This is just a follow-up of the hearings that you just had, and so we would recommend your approval of these resolutions, which will complete that process. Then we'll move to the next step in the total process.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve action item 5.1, the adoption of the preliminary determination reimbursement resolution?
Madam President, I move to adopt action item 5.1, to adopt the preliminary determination reimbursement resolutions.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, so then our motion is approving item 5.1, the adoption of the preliminary determination reimbursement resolution. If in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Our next action item is action item 5.2, the resolution and form of lease for the 2026 facility project. Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. This resolution is regarding the proposed lease and also approving the issuance of first mortgage bonds by the Carmel Clay School Building Corporation and various matters related.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve? Again, this is action item 5.2, the resolution and form of lease for the 2026 facility project.
I move to approve the resolution and form of lease for the 2026 facility project.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, so we're going to take a vote. Again, this is approving item 5.2, the resolution in form of lease for the 2026 facility project. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Our next action item is 5.3, which is approval of the 2025-2026 contract between the School Board of Trustees of Carmel Clay Schools and the Carmel Teachers Association. Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. On September the 29th, members of the Carmel Teachers Association approved the proposed tentative agreement for 25-26. Then on October the 3rd, the Board of School Trustees held a public meeting and discussed the terms of that tentative agreement. The major changes to the agreement is it provides for a 2% increase to the salary schedule plus increment. It also provides a new added literacy endorsement amount of $200 to the base salary per the recent Indiana code. And then there's various language items which you have in front of you that I won't detail. And with that, we would recommend your approval of this agreement.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve action item 5.3? This is the 2025-2026 contract between the School Board of School Trustees of Carmel Clay Schools and the Carmel Teachers Association.
I move to approve the 2025-2026 contract between the Board of School Trustees and the Carmel Teachers Association.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we will now take a vote. And again, what we are voting on is approving item 5.3. That is the 2025-2026 contract between the Board of School Trustees and the Carmel Teachers Association. If in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I just wanted to add a couple words and say that Mr. Mark Ween, our CTA president, was unable to be here this evening. However, he wanted to send his gratitude to our school board, to the administration, and also to our teachers and our Carmel Teachers Association for the approval of tonight's contract. We have a wonderful working relationship with our teachers. We appreciate everything they do in the classroom each and every day. And I am very pleased that we had such a positive work session to come to this agreement tonight. And we look forward to a great relationship moving on in the future with our Carmel Teachers Association. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have our workshop topic, and it looks like we get to relocate ourselves. Yeah. So our topic is operations and finance. Mr. McMichael. We're ready for you.
Well, we're going to move down here. And myself and my other people that are assisting me with the presentation will be on that side, and then the board will start there and come around this way.
Don't trip,
anytime anyone talks, make sure you have the microphone on so that this is being live streamed and recorded. So just press the button down. That is automatically on right there, but if you have one of the handheld or the portable mics in front of you, just make sure it's green while you talk. And we'll turn it over to Mr. McMichael.
Well, thank you. Actually have looked forward to this opportunity to give this presentation. Over the last several months, there have been, questions about how we do things with facilities and construction and all that and how they're financed. And so we thought we'd just have an entire workshop that would respond to those questions and also provide some information maybe that you didn't ask for, but we want you to hear it, or at least I want you to hear it.
We're going to
So,
hear it anyway.
You're going to hear it anyway. So first I want to introduce the folks that are here tonight to assist me. First we have Belvia Gray, and Belvia is a partner with Baker Tilly. Then we have Lindsay Simonetto, who's a director at Baker Tilly, Brad Skillman, who's CEO of the Skillman Corporation, Victor Landfair, who's executive vice president of the Skillman Corporation. So I'll start and just give some overview, and then most of the presentation will move that way. I'm sure you're pleased about that. And so am I. Well, so as you know, you've heard this, but the public hasn't necessarily, but as you know, we have 19 major buildings, 15 which are schools. We have about 3.5 million square feet of space. Our oldest facility is the east side portion, or portions of the east side of Carmel High School, the auditorium and so forth, which was constructed in 1958. Our newest facility is an addition to that building, which is the Polytech addition, which is just recently finished. So the mission of our facilities department is to provide high-quality facilities to enhance and support the educational program. As I've said before, the only reason for the building in the first place is to do that. And so if we fail that, the rest of it doesn't matter. We always have a focus on transparency, and we want to be responsible stewards of the public funds. Our guiding principles that we go by is to, again, support the academic program. We absolutely have to have safety in safe facilities. We want very much transparency. We want to maintain facilities at a highest level. We want to maximize energy efficiency, and there was comments earlier. And we want to be good stewards of the taxpayers' funds. So how do we know if we're being successful? Well, we believe that with a recent 94% of community approval rating for the school district, that is one example. We do deliver what's promised to the community, and we deliver it on time and within budget. And we also do maximize sustainability and green building practices. And I want to give some examples of that. Because as noted, Carmel does not have solar, Carmel schools, and many of our neighbors do. But we're all different, as you know, in a variety of ways in terms of amount of acreage and a variety of things. But what we do have is 11 of our schools are Energy Star schools. That's a national recognition. We have the most Energy Star schools in Hamilton County, including all of those that have solar. We were the second to begin an energy management program in 1995. All of our neighbors have that now. And then fairly recently, in 2023, we received a National Green Ribbon Award for a district. In 2014, Carmel High School received a Green Ribbon Award, but in 2023, the school district did. And so we had people attend at Washington, D.C. for that recognition. And so those are some examples of both sustainability as well as energy conservation. We do a lot of energy conservation. We do it as a practice because we do work regularly. It's always incorporated in what we do all the time, as opposed to, and as opposed to a separate energy saving contract or project. And so we basically incorporate it in. And so our facilities do compare very well with any school facilities you want to look at or compare to in the state of Indiana, including our neighbors. and they're very good, by the way. I don't mean to suggest by my comments that they aren't. So with that, this is our team. At the center of it, we have myself, representing the school district, Toby Steele, our Director of Facilities, Tabitha Hughes, our Capital Projects Manager. Then we have Skillman as our Construction Manager, as you know, Fanning and Howie as our Architect, Baker and Daniels is our Bond Counsel, our Legal Counsel, and then we have Local Counsel, of course, with Church Hill. And then we also have our Municipal Advisors, Financial Advisor, Baker Tilly. And so that's the team, and we work. You'll hear more about this, but it's a consistent team that has developed a very good relationship that we all work on the same page, understand what the goals are, and it seems to work out very well. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Belvia, and she'll start the presentation regarding finances.
Hi, thanks for the introduction, Roger. Good evening, everyone. I'm a pleasure to be here. Like Roger said, I'm Belvia Gray. I lead our public finance team for Baker Tilly, and I'm also a Carmel resident and the parent of a high schooler. So, double dip in all the ways that I serve the community. But tonight, I'm going to share a little bit about our role as municipal advisor, and then I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay, who works really closely with Roger and his team. And, the slide really kind of captures the overall view of what we do, but we've been serving as municipal advisor for Carmel for over 30 years. And in this role, we serve as a fiduciary to the school corporation, and that means that we are legally and ethically bound to act in your best interests. We don't just offer advice, it's really a standard that we're held accountable to. We're regulated by the SEC, and we also have oversight by the MSRB. Because of that, we really view ourselves as an extension of your business team. We sit on the same side of the table for you, and so we provide really specialized advice to Roger and his team when they need it. We know how much Carmel Schools really values transparency and clear communication, and this really aligns very well with our role. Our job is to make sure that you have the information that you need, that it is clearly presented, thoroughly researched, all while keeping your goals in mind. And to provide a little bit more context specifically on our rules of duty of care and duty of loyalty, I'll give you a few examples. So for duty of care, that means that we are providing you with data-driven recommendations that are tailored to the district's needs. We're breaking down complex financial information that's easy to understand and for you to act on. And we're ensuring that your business office, you as the board, and the community have tools to make informed decisions. Duty of loyalty means that we're remaining independent from outside influence, so our advice is unbiased and focused solely on what's in your best interests. So overall, the message here is that we are bound, legally bound, to put your interests first. So that's an overview of our role as municipal advisor, and Lindsay's going to talk a little bit more about how we serve the district and how we have served the district.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. So Baker Tilly serves school districts across the state and really beyond, and schools of varying sizes, varying needs, and what we have on this slide is just different ways that we do support schools all over the state and beyond. And the ones in bold, which maybe are a little bit hard to see, maybe easier to see on the paper in front of you. The bolded ones are the ones that the services that we provide specifically to Carmel schools. And as you know, schools have a lot of capital needs, especially a school like Carmel with so many buildings. And many of those capital needs are not able to be funded through the normal operating budget. And so therefore, bonds are typically issued to finance those projects. So just like the 2026 preliminary determination hearing that you did for those projects, that's consistent with what schools do all over the country to fund those capital projects. So the services that we have bolded here, a lot of them do relate to the planning and issuance of bonds. One of the things that really stands out that Carmel does a really nice job of is taking a proactive approach to facility planning, really having that long-term vision and sense of what the future needs are when making decisions about the more immediate projects that are going to be pursued. And this really helps us as the financial advisor to be able to model out different bond illustrations, planning for, again, those immediate needs with a long-term eye as well, and being able to manage the tax rate and keep that consistent and steady, and ultimately just be able to issue the bonds more efficiently. There's also consideration of those projects as those get prioritized, which projects will be funded through bonds versus which projects can be funded through the operating budget while still maintaining the cash balance where it needs to be in line with goals and policies that are in place there. From a bond rating agency standpoint, which Carmel has the highest of all the schools in the state, it's one of 4 schools that have a AA bond rating. So that's the highest that any school has in the state of Indiana. Those credit rating agencies really value this long-term planning. They see that as a positive because even though we know that these needs are going to change over time, circumstances change, the plans are going to evolve over time, but having the framework in place ultimately helps so that you can get ahead of seeing potential future issues and know those ahead of time. So an example that we have here in this chart of how we've modeled current and future bond issues. This is a chart that shows all the annual payments. In gray, those are the bonds that are currently outstanding, and all of those existing bonds mature within 10 years. And then in yellow, that's an illustration of the 2026 facility project that you're discussed tonight. So we've modeled that, and then there's future projects and bond issues that we've modeled, which are certainly subject to change. Again, this is an ever-changing, fluid document, but this does show ultimately that those future projects are layered in. There's that long-term vision of being able to issue bonds without making the tax rate go up and then go kind of a yo-yo situation with the tax rate, getting ahead of all of that. And again, having a plan, even if it is changing, it really is a lot easier to be able to change an existing plan than to start from scratch. And with us having a long history with the district, it's really been helpful to know the goals and know what the tax rate goals are, know what the goals are as far as the repayment term. All of those things really help to make the process of issuing the bonds a lot more efficient, both from Baker Tilly's standpoint, but from the administration's standpoint as well. Just a lot less back and forth. So the way that Carmel's been able to borrow historically has been able to have these bonds be repaid over a term of about 10 years or less. In Indiana, these property tax bonds can be repaid for a term up to 20 years. So that's one area that Carmel's been fortunate to be able to issue bonds with a shorter repayment term, save on those interest costs, but again, still manage that tax rate and keep that steady. Carmel also has a really strong, large tax base, as you know, and so that's another area that's been beneficial to manage and keep that tax rate not just steady, but actually keep it lower than what the statewide average is. So both the total tax rate and also the tax rate just specifically that pays for debt service are both below those statewide averages.
Lindsay, my, that's loud. Lindsay, Roger, wait. Okay, it was like really loud and then I couldn't hear it at all. Apologies. Is it okay to ask questions during or would
If you like,
for us?
yeah,
Yeah.
very informal.
So, great. So appreciate this to make sure I'm understanding and to make sure we're not giving an incorrect impression. This chart presumes there's a new debt issued after 2035. Is that right?
Right.
So
this is
those
kind of a
last 10 years,
10-year
it looks like it was, you're taking the 10-year plan and doing it out over a 20-year life of the bond series, basically.
So basically, it's looking at project needs over the next 10 years
Okay.
and modeling those out. So, to your point, we're showing a 20-year period because there's something being issued 10 years from now with
Right.
another 10-year term. Yeah.
And to your point, that's why the tax rate shows that it's going down. It's
Right.
not that we believe it's going to go down.
Right.
Because there will be, 5 years from now, there'll be some form of the last 5 years of this and a new 5 years.
Right,
Which
and
will,
that's what,
which,
that's why I
so
wanted to
there'll,
make
there'll
it.
continue to be work. We try to show that in a kind of 10 years or so at a time, as opposed to 40 years or
Right, because
something.
going out longer than that, I think, really
Yeah,
gets
it
speculative.
gets pretty iffy at 10.
But I
let
didn't
alone-
want to give the public the impression that our tax rate is going down like that, because we're going to have to issue new bonds after 2035,
Yes.
whenever that might be.
Yes.
The 10-year plan, I don't think I've ever seen it. Where is that 10-year plan?
We have really, I'll say 2 plans. We have a formal plan, which we are going to bring to you, that you've not seen, but we have a 35 or 40 pages of charts and graphs and all of that. That's kind of a long-range, kind of a detailed plan. And then day to day, we work off of a working document that's like 2 pages. And it simply is, we're going to, on that document, you would see these 26 projects, for example, just like Smoky Row and just ding, ding, ding. And then 29, you're going to see, as we've mentioned before, you're going to see Mohawk Trails and Woodbrook. And then after that, I don't remember exactly, but there will be projects coming up at Carmel High School. From memory, there will be ones out there that are scheduled, like Prairie Trace, because really in both, but on this 2-page, summary, outline, if you will, it starts with those assumptions of major renovation in about 35 years, mid-cycle renovation 35, 37, mid-cycle, 15, 17. And so that's the outline of that. That becomes the outline for the 2-page. And so when you get out here, 29, you'll see Mohawk Trails and Woodbrook, and there may be 1 or other 2 things on it. But by the time we get to 29, I guarantee you there will be 4 or 5 other things that they won't be $50 million, but there'll be a compressor or a boiler or something. And so as you get, like any plan, as you get to that, we know that when we get to that detail or that closeness, then we're going to get, serious about what do we need next year or the year or for 29. And so that gets more detail really starting now, and it'll get more detail and finally finished as we finally get to 29. And so that's kind of the practice that we have. The purpose of that is my approach has always been when I present $60-some million worth of bonds, I don't just say, here's what the bonds are. My intent is to say, and here's next, and it doesn't raise the tax rate. Well, but then I say, well, and not only that, you can see that we've considered there is a tomorrow, and in this case, there is 10 years. And so the big stuff, if you will, it's represented. And so, which is a way of saying, we're not just looking today, we're always looking out, always, and there have been examples where somebody may come, like myself, may come and say, well, we want you to approve this bond issue, and there's no tax rate. You didn't ask me, what about next year, or the year after that? And then when the tax rate spikes, it's a problem. And so that's part of that transparency too, by the way. But so that's how we have it. So in summary, we have like a 2-page plan that gives you kind of the big stuff, and then we have based on just years. Nothing's that simple, but I've said before that facilities that you can anticipate, they have a useful life, but it can vary. Depends on how well you like your car. Some cars last 10, 12 years, and some of them last 25 because you take care of them. So all that goes into it. So it's much more complex than what I'm describing, but that's kind of where we start.
Thank you. So when we are working with the district to bring these bonds to market, lot of interest from broker-dealers to bid on these bonds. The Carmel name is definitely known across the nation, and so we get a lot of strong interest, a lot of bidders bidding on the bonds, and even some really that we don't often see on other day-to-day bond issues. We see some new names show up. So that also just drives up that competition and ultimately drives down the cost of borrowing. And that's all I have. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here and serve Carmel.
I'm Brad Skillman. I want to take a little bit of time. Lindsay talked about services with Baker Tilly. I'm not going to talk in this next probably 10 minutes about services that our company does for Carmel. I think I'd like to spend some time and really look at it a lens as kind of a subject matter expert on delivery methods that are available for public institutions like yourself in the state of Indiana. On the screen here, we have all of the different types of ways that you have available to you to deliver a district-wide facilities plan. Want to talk about the three in the circle and spend some time discussing those, specifically because that's what we see the most, and also because some of those are not necessarily long-established delivery methods recognized in the state of Indiana. It doesn't mean that they're not used in other states or haven't been used in other states over a period of time. But because the way that the state of Indiana has certain laws, not all delivery methods across all states are equal. And so I want to talk about some of those nuances and probably start from left to right. Construction management as agency has been around for over 50 years. We've been delivering those services for over 50 years. CMC, or construction manager at risk, or construction manager as a contractor, have been available in other states for public entities for years. We've been doing that type of delivery method in states like Ohio and Michigan since the early 90s. In the state of Indiana, that method became available by law in 2015. As a matter of fact, the first school district in the state of Indiana, Southmont, that used the CM as constructor delivery method, Victor and I did in June of 2015. And also we'll discuss a little bit about design build, which has been a nuanced approach since we've been building buildings, but available to Indiana in a form since 2005. It's important to keep in mind when we talk about delivery methods, there is something that supersedes all of the language and all of the, I'm going to say, in some cases, propaganda of talking about delivery methods, and that is public bid laws. So the public bid laws come first and foremost, and then consideration about the nuances of construction delivery methods. In the state of Indiana, in order for us to have what we call a responsive and responsible bid, those contractors that wish to engage in a relationship in someone like Carmel Clay Schools need to be IDOA certified. So that's a requirement for anyone seeking to do business with you. That certification means that they have to have the financial wherewithal to have 100% performance and payment bond. Also disclosure of past litigation with public clients. And Indiana Code requires us to do this when someone like ourselves or whomever you work with, or if you take bids directly, to come and say this is in fact a responsive and responsible bid, and we can enter into a contractual relationship. You do because you do so much work, and all clients, all owners have this, all public owners. You do have a right to use past contractor performance for awarding contracts. So I don't care what your financial wherewithal is. I don't care what your past disclosure is. If you've not been a good partner in the past, you as a client have the right to say, no, you are not a responsible bidder and we're not going to engage with you. A lot of delivery methods talk about schedule and what I'll call sometimes speed to market. There's nuances to consider for all owners when you look about construction schedule and where your priorities lie on schedule. But I will offer when you're dealing with public entities, especially Carmel, there are some considerations. Number one, Lindsay's got to get the money for me first. Roger and Lindsay have to free up the funds. We have a transparent process that you go through. This isn't like a private development where I can go and get a loan and then boom, I'm off and running. So we always are looking at aligning the funding mechanism with your priorities of needs and how do we maximize the funding to those needs. City of Carmel, they have requirements. They're an excellent partner, but that is a 6-month process we need to take into account before we can start construction. We've gotten smarter over the years, and we can do things like early bid packages to fast track projects. All delivery methods have that available to you, but we have to take into mind, when we look at schedule, we have a partner in the form of the city that we also need to appease. And lastly, and this is most important, regardless of any delivery method, we are building in a unique environment when we're building around students and staff. And so we do not let construction schedule trump the day. We have to build a schedule around an educational environment. And all delivery methods have to take that into consideration. Victor, who's worked much more closely with you than I have, thought we just put some of those examples of why working in that environment is so important. Victor?
Well, I highlighted some really, obviously, safety and security is critical, and making sure the job is safe and safe for students is not always the fastest way to build construction, to state the obvious. But for example, also working around existing occupancies, Cherry Tree is a good example. That's a $20 million project. We're taking 26 months. There's 10 separate phases. Each of those phases moves students from one area to another, reoccupy. It's really 10 little projects stacked together. So that's driving that schedule, not the speed in which we can do the construction. You look at the stadium project and the natatorium, temporary facilities at the stadium project to maintain, seating. We're not going to close down football season in Carmel. At least that was the preference stated to me. So we worked around that. So again, that project could have most likely started at a different time, finished at a different time, maybe done more quickly because, but needed to accommodate the public, of course. And other things that are very important and critical and do end up tending to drive issues about sound and noise and dust. And of course, it is not unusual for us to stop work during I-learning testing is another example where, again, education trumps construction. Just wanted to give you a highlight. Some of those things that really drive schedule and drive our projects are really around making sure we're good. Education comes first.
Again, not having a preference for any of these construction delivery methods because we do all of these. It's important to look at delivery methods on a standpoint of an axis of how much control do you as an owner have and how much transparency is involved through that process, because all owners are different. And you might look at this and say, well, it's very obvious. I want high transparency and I want high involvement. Not all owners are like that. And so it's important to say the delivery method is for the goals of the owner, and not all owners are equal. And so if you start with a method that you're familiar with, construction management as owner, as far as a contract structure, you as the owner sit atop, and you have two advocates that you work with. One is your architectural firm that you contract directly with, and your construction manager as an agent, which means by contract they sit on your side of the table. The line bar there under the full transparency, that's listed at that because we have public bid openings. I think some of you have sat in some of those. And it is a very detailed prescribed process. And what you hear is what you see on bid day. I want to talk a little bit because some people, when talking about delivery methods, talk about risk and risk shift. But I think it's important to keep in mind what IDOA and what the state has done on your behalf to set guidelines to manage those risks. So I mentioned the IDOA certification that all contractors have to have. I think it's important because when you think about failures of a construction project, you either have failure of funding, meaning the owner can't come up with the cash mid-project. Well, you have a AA rating. Your cash is pretty good. You have failure of performance from the actual people doing the work in the field, failure of contractors or going out of business, failure from your professionals, your design professional, your construction management professional. And so what are some risk management tools that are in place to protect the community and protect your assets? Number one, we talked about performance and payment bonds. So if any contractor fails, you have an insurance policy for someone else to come in and take over at no cost to the owner. Professional liability from a construction manager. I don't know about others, but we're not perfect. We do make mistakes, and we're required by law to carry coverage for that. And your professional liability and errors and omissions from your design team. As the graph indicated, this is the most transparent process because you were involved with all stages of phasing, financing, design, construction sequencing. The good thing about the CM delivery method is it does provide flexibility. While we're over here doing one large project, we can take a same group of team members and do 2 or 3 small other projects. There's some economies of scale. The process focuses upfront on getting as much good information as possible to get the most competitive bids possible to maximize dollars that go into, in your case, educational program. It does not come without its downside. If you don't want to see how the sausage is made, this is not a good delivery method for you. If you don't have a staff that has the wherewithal to manage a design team, a construction team, and get into all the details and take the time to do this, then you should probably look at a different delivery method. One of those delivery methods that if you go on the scale then to owner involvement and transparency is CMC or CM as constructor. I have to say 50% of the work that we do is under this delivery method. When this delivery method became available or was being discussed as being available in the state of Indiana, I personally worked with Indiana University, Purdue University, a handful of architects for about 3 years to get this passed. Not so much because it was better than any other delivery method, but we had certain clients, specifically like IU, Ball State, and Purdue, that have different needs than you do, and said, we want that tool in our toolbox. And so we set out to craft legislation to make that happen. In this case, you have the architect, same relationship as under CM agency. Your CM or your CMC is a little different. Becomes a little trickier because now we're serving 2 masters. By contract, we have to serve the contractors where we hold the contracts, but we're also working very hard to make you happy because that's how we do our business. In the case of CMC in the state of Indiana, it is a transparent public bid process, very similar to agency, but once those bids are taken, your CMC holds all of those contracts, and you no longer see those agreements. Those agreements are now between me and my contractors. So anything that happens behind that scene after bid day, you no longer see. Some of the nuances and why these are good for some clients. Somebody mentioned the Carmel Library a little earlier tonight. Victor and I worked on that project. That was a CMC project. And the reason it was a good fit for them is they only do a project maybe once every 20, 25 years. They don't have a Roger across the street. And they said, we need somebody to do a bigger lift, and we need somebody to carry some of that water for us. Risk management tools, or CMC, are almost identical to CMA, but one quirky thing that happened in the state of Indiana. Under state law, not only do your contractors bidding the work need to carry performance and payment bond, but I, as your CM, am now your contractor. I'm your single point of contact. I too have to carry that performance and payment bond. So you're paying for that bonding twice. And so that can go from anywhere between 1% and 2% of construction cost. And that's just the way the law reads. There's no way around that. Some other nuances, I, as your CM, can competitively bid up to 30% of your work. Some can argue there's pros and cons there. If all of a sudden I get to bid 30% of your work, my motivation to go out and get a lot of competition may or may not dwindle. Professional design services, I mentioned your architect is still on your side of the table, but we do create some conflict of interests. And since I am now your contractor, any change orders that happen are a revenue source for me. Those are now my change orders. So just something to decide or think about. But again, Carmel Library we did. Most of the healthcare work we do, which is private, takes on this model. And a lot of municipalities that we work with that are short of resources will outsource some of these responsibilities under this delivery method to a CMC. And then lastly, this one probably I hear more accurate information from an industry standard, but inaccurate information as far as a delivery method in the public sector. And that's because of the prescriptive method that the state of Indiana requires you, an owner, to deliver a design-build project. If you look at that graph, before you can engage in I'm going to go back one thing. I'm sorry. The last bullet point, I missed something because we're talking about procurement. CM agencies are professional services. Just like your architect, you can hire that team and go to work to do multiple concurrent projects. Under the CMC procurement process in the state of Indiana, every time you want to have a CMC contract, you have to go out for a request for proposal and procurement process that's dictated by the state. So every time you want to go do a project, RFP, selection, possibly interview, then select. So it does add time, and there is a process. And so that's why when you have somebody like Carmel Library, or you're doing one new building and that's all you're going to do for the next 10 years, it makes sense. One RFP, you move. If you're doing multiple concurrent projects, every time you do one of those projects, RFP, proposal, collection, selection. Gets even more complicated when you go design build, because before you can issue any kind of RFP, you need to hire a technical criteria developer, somebody that says, here is a conceptual idea or design of what we're trying to do. Hire a technical review committee that has to have an engineer or an architect or a licensed contractor. And that's a paid position or a paid process. You have to pay for both of those groups of professionals before you can issue an RFP, request for proposal, request for qualification, to even start the process of hiring a design builder. At that point in time, after the selection process, unless you bring on an owner's technical rep to help you navigate this process, you're on your own. The design builder holds all the contracts with all the designers. They hold all the contracts with all of the contractors. And there is no public bidding process like you have under CM agency or CMC. For example, Victor and I did what at the time was the largest design build school project in the state when he and I did Fishers and HSE high schools, and those were 46 apiece. We gave them one piece of paper when we submitted our guaranteed maximum price. There was no bidding. We got numbers. It was all done behind the scenes, and we came to the school board and we had one piece of paper. So that transparency shifts.
Mr. Skillman, question, please. Well, first I'll preface it, because this is terribly, terribly helpful, and appreciate it very much. So, and please know that I know and appreciate the quality of work that your firm does, and it's apparent throughout our community. My question, my first one is really related to the bidding and what's transparent and what's not. So you've got on this slide zero transparency, because what you're saying is the individual trade companies that come together for a certain project, in this example for design build, do not individually competitively bid. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
So when you came and you said, okay, when we presented HSE with an all-encompassing one-price project, you're not saying, are you, that you were the only company that came with a one-price bid? I mean, a design build is a one-price, all-encompassing, correct?
There was a competitive process where 4 firms were looked at, and price was only part
One of several criteria.
One of several criteria. That is correct.
Okay, so you did have competition for your all-in price among other criteria in order to have been awarded that project, correct?
Correct, but keep in mind, that was also off of 35% complete drawings. So I had
Right.
65%
Incomplete.
incomplete drawings.
Question mark.
And
But you were held to that price,
yes, but I controlled the design.
correct?
And I
Which, as you're talking about how much owner, being us, and our team has over it, we can make changes, we can do things using another format that you can't do in design build, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
and that's generally not what we've used in Carmel.
That is
Okay.
correct.
So for what we've used in Carmel is essentially CMA.
CM agency, that's correct.
So in CM agency, do you have competition for construction and architectural services? Or are those professional services selected by the district in advance? And the competition comes in with those subcontract level tradespeople.
That is correct.
And so it's your presentation that is transparent, but you yourselves don't actually have any competition for the services you provide in the overall umbrella structure. Because that is how, and this is all how the law is already set out. I'm not suggesting you're doing anything wrong.
No.
I'm just saying in the pros and cons, you're selected and that decision's already made, correct?
We are professional services, so you have the ability to, for lack of a better term, shop our services whenever you like. Just like you do any other professional services, whether they're legal services, accounting services, architectural services, financial services. So while we are hired up front as an owner advocate, you do have the right to, for lack of a better term, shop those professional services whenever you deem necessary.
Right. And so I guess, Roger, this is the question that when I get asked, we get approached all the time when we go to
Yep.
conferences. Everybody says they can do a good or better job as you can do, Mr. Skillman, and they can do it better and cheaper, and, everything's wonderful, right? And so when they say, hey, we just want an opportunity to compete and show you that we can do that, when do we shop for those services, Roger?
There's not a set schedule. Before we built the 2 elementary schools, for the first time in years, we invited proposals from both CMs and architects. And as you may know, we changed architect. We did not change CM. We rarely do it, which doesn't mean we're not aware of what the market is. But to put it in, the fees for the CM and the architect in larger projects, you're looking at around 12%. So not insignificant, but it's 12%, it's not 50%. And even, I'll say even, the state of Indiana has seen fit to not require bidding for services. You don't want to bid your brain surgeon. You may not want to
Your
bid
lawyer? You don't want to bid your lawyer.
Well, no, well, and we're talking not about the 2 major ones, the CM and the architect. But you're right, I don't want to bid the lawyer, Barnes and Thornburg in this case, for bond counsel. I've used pretty much every major bond counsel over my career, and there's not very many in Indiana. They're all excellent. Financial advisors, same thing. But my point is that the fact that we don't go out for price, we go out for, in services, we're looking for the best at a reasonable price. And everybody knows what everybody charges. And so there's not a meaningful difference from one major architectural firm to another major architectural firm. So, so we have to be very, I believe we have to be very careful about the cost of services in relationship to the services provided and the quality of those services. Now, these folks are not the only quality CM, and they're not, and Fanning and Howie's not the only quality architect. But they are two that we've worked with for years, and if I selected another one, we did select another one with CSO. We elected to go back to Fanning and Howie. And there's a variety of reasons, most of which were not, I'm not being critical of CSO, but those two elementary schools were very difficult to get them built because this is a relationship business. And it takes years to establish a relationship. The name of the company is the same, but the players change naturally, and so do we. But so it's a relationship business, and the better that relationship is with quality people, the better outcome we're going to have. So we've had very excellent outcomes. So we've not routinely changed. We did change on the elementary schools. I won't go into the reasons why, but there was motivation to consider alternatives and so forth. When we did that, as I said, we changed one, did not change the other. So it's a very important point, but I can't emphasize enough that we do not shop services, and you guys don't shop services, by the way, as far as I know, for corporation counsel. And so we've had David Day for 30 years, and different firms that he worked for, but same lawyer. And so I use that as an example. And we've had different board members, but not different attorney. And I would say the same thing about Church and David. You know, fine firm, fine lawyers. There are other fine firms and other fine lawyers. And we could change, and I believe we could assemble a different team. And I believe we could ultimately be as successful and continue to be successful as we have been. I think it would take a while. I think, and so the question is what's the motivation to change? And I'll tell you what, to answer my own question, one of the things that happens that we're very, and that happened with the two elementary schools. Everybody got too comfortable. I got too comfortable. My staff got too comfortable. In my opinion, architects got too comfortable. And so it's when you have that first job, if you're these guys, and this is your first job, and it's huge, I mean, you can imagine, you're going to put your best foot forward. You're going to be right on top of your game. And I'd say the same thing about any relationship, whether it's two people or two companies, whatever. But then over time, you get to know each other so well that there's really pluses of that, but the downside is everybody gets too comfortable. And so we try really hard. We're very conscious of that, first of all, and try very hard to avoid that. And I think they might say, and I don't want to ask them because, you know, they couldn't hardly disagree with me, I suppose. But I believe that they understand that if I felt that they were slipping or that there was a problem, we would change, and we would certainly consider change. And I do not threaten people. The things that I say threaten people, but they do. But there's a difference. I mean, a threat in my mind can be an idle.
Now you sound
threat.
like me, Roger.
You know what I'm saying? But if I'm telling you something, you better believe it. And so, and I think they believe it, and I think they've continued to stay up the top of their game. The other thing that happens is if you're them, imagine how important this account is to you. And so it would be just as important as some of the people that solicit you. Just, you know, and they would like for, you know, for that to be them. And, you know, we all get that. They're trying to make a living and so forth. But they aren't all good, by the way. There's a very select few over long term. And Skillman, for example, I've been around long enough to where when CMs came into schools, some of them are former painters and all kinds of stuff. And they and another company there were two that actually kind of survived the process for years. And there's, currently there's certainly more than two, but that's my point. And they have all different models, by the way. But so anyhow, that's my comment. But I wanted to elaborate on that because the idea of competition and bidding in this scenario is a real issue. And clearly, we've not focused on who's the cheapest.
I think I'll probably pivot and come back to delivery methods if anybody has any question. But that's a good pivot to now switch my hat and talk about how important relationship consistency and institutional knowledge is to speed to market. Because I think what we're doing and how we work as a team, this is the best speed to market, transparency, utilization of funds that you could use. And this was my idea to have this evening when Roger and I were first talking about spending time tonight, because this mission statement and these guiding principles are something that we, as your construction professional, your design professional, and your financial professionals, keep in mind every time we sit down every year to develop this master plan, this district-wide plan. If it doesn't fall into one of these, we're doing something wrong. So this is Roger's challenge, and you have high expectations as a community. You have high standards, and you have high standards of your professionals. So what that means is this relationship is an investment where we're not one and done. And in order for us to be ready for next year, as Roger said, not only this year, 5 years, 10 years, because I was kind of nudging Victor. When I looked at Lindsay's slide, those 49 pages of projects all have detailed backup to what we as your design and construction professionals are doing every year. And I get to tease Roger a little bit. Roger changes his mind every once in a while. And so we have to jump through hoops to make sure all of that is right. And so there's an advantage to that. And I'm going to have Victor talk a lot about some detailed numbers. But, I said, if you don't want to see how the sausage is made, this isn't a good process. We're going to do a little bit of hot dog right here, because there's a lot of work that goes into every year when we do projects. So I'm going to have Victor explain a little bit what this is and why it's important.
Thank you, Brad. I wanted to try in a very short period of time capture a little bit of this relationship in some illustrative documents. So the first one I have on the screen here, if you will, is a snapshot of 3 years Skillman working with Carmel Clay Schools. There's a couple numbers and there's some colors here to kind of simplify that process. In terms of numbers, during these 3 years that we were working with you, your building program construction costs total $170 million. In other words, during that time period, you had under contract $170 million of construction in which we were your advocate managing for you. Of course, that was not all at the same stage of construction, and that's what the colors illustrate. That green represents ongoing work, blue represents work that started either prior or during that time and was completed during that time. Yellow represents, I'm going to talk a minute about quoted work, but smaller quoted projects, and then red represents the time in which it started. So as you can see, we had various projects in various stages of development, starting well within this and continuing on beyond this snapshot of time. Also want to talk about, in terms of speed to market, you have been able to leverage your relationships in order to do smaller projects and sort of respond quickly to programmatic needs, often at the high school, but all across the district. And that has resulted in a number of quotes. I have a team here, a full-time team in Carmel managing your larger projects. you take advantage of that resource and you incorporate smaller projects, so often in the summertime, not always, and in essence, they're somewhat freely managed for you because I already have the resources here and we're overseeing them during that. And so that's about $2 million, but 17 small projects that all impacted education and programs during that time. And so I could go on, but that's what I wanted to illustrate is the leveraging and our ability to do this and our ability to move quickly and respond quickly to needs is because we have resources, we have institutional knowledge, and we have an architectural and facilities department that we're in sync, and that becomes very efficient, and to Brad's term, speed to market, being able to respond quickly. The next, go back one, Brad. The next one is on the back page, and I know this is a lot of numbers. I didn't really expect anybody. I expect Belvia to check my math because this
He
is
knows.
Belvia. But the point here is that in order to, one of the components of every project is cost and time, right? And so as we're developing cost estimates, we also are developing schedules, right? And so, Brad, if you go to the next slide, we are able to take, not that that's a whole lot easier to read.
A little better.
We were able to take our knowledge early on. This is a snapshot of the 2024 bond series. And just Cherry Tree, the first year is the component up on the slide here. We were able to anticipate the dollars spent in January, February, March, each month. Why is that important? Because it's important because Roger, Lindsay, they're working together to make sure you have the money when you need it, or when we need it, and also the ability to reinvest that and get dollars in the bank. So we could only do this because we're planning up front with you. We know your expectations. We understand that it's going to take 2 years and 10 phases to remodel Cherry Tree. So it's a bit of an illustration of the partnership and how it affects your financial aspect, not just construction.
That was too much information for me, but thanks, Victor. I'm going to get back to one of the guiding principles. That's my favorite. One of the guiding principles that's on your placemat that's near and dear to my heart, our heart as an organization, is supporting academic program. And I think we've talked a little bit about how important the relationship and that long-term institutional knowledge is on implementing the district-wide, but that academic program, and we started with these buildings support education, first and foremost. And I have to say thank you. Thank you because we've also had access to your students, and we've had a pretty special opportunity to use your construction job sites as a working lab. And so over the past few years, here's just a list of the interns that we've been able to put on campus, and that workforce development through the state is more and more important. We're very much engaged, very proud of it. Thank you. Please, if anything, if we can keep that relationship with your students, we need them in our industry, and they're pretty special people. As a matter of fact, in 2024, Carmel Schools and the Skillman Corporation nominated for a 2024 Impact Award for workforce development with Isaac, and that's pretty special. And so, thank you. That's a win-win for the whole team, and we couldn't do that if we weren't here long-term in the district and could develop a relationship with your students as well. So, thank you. Of all of the schools we work with, you have done an excellent job being a partner with that workforce development. So, something we're very proud of, and I know you are too. So. I started by saying I was going to be if there's any other questions on delivery methods, happy to answer that, but I'd be remiss in saying, coming off such a special weekend, thank you for allowing us to be a part of all that. That was very amazing. Thank you. Very much appreciated.
At this time, we'll close out the presentation. I'd like to make one comment.
And then open it up to questions, and then how long we're here depends on the questions you ask. So, but to kind of close out the discussion about, the services and so forth, I want to emphasize to you, and you all know this, because if you go to a conference, you've got vendors and people just all over you, right? I mean, that's business. And people soon learn your names. We spend millions and millions of dollars of the public's money, but it's millions and millions of dollars. Big business. Most of the people maybe all the people you're hearing from have a self-serving interest, and I don't mean that as a bad thing. They're trying to make a living. I don't. And so I would encourage you to seek out, because they won't, unlike the vendors, they won't seek you out, but seek out other people, more in my role perhaps, or in, at a university or someplace where they're not trying to get business, but they have expertise and in this matter. Then I think you'll get a better perspective. I'm always concerned that, because I've been around here for a while, and so I know how this works, and so all of you are seeing this like a new opportunity. And it's not a bad thing. They're not bad people. It's just, but that's just how it works. And they're wanting to sell you something themselves. And there's a huge amount of money, and anytime money's involved, it gets really important. So that's all I would say about that. And now we'll open it up to questions.
I already warned them before ISBA. To turn around your badge or hide it.
Yes.
Do not make eye
Don't look
contact.
them, don't look them in the eye, is what I tell you.
Yep.
Don't go through
Vendor
the
booth.
vendor booth. Just don't even.
Oh, no, yeah, you can get the free stuff, but just don't tell them where
Well,
where
just
you're from.
grab it and run. Don't look up.
Not a question. Thank you for the information. It's super helpful. Some of this experience as a newer board member is a little bit like drinking out of a fire hose to some extent. Not completely, but a little bit. And so being able to deep dive and get more information, especially as we're doing bond issuance and reviewing budget and knowing what is coming down the pike over the next few years, is super helpful. Because of the responsibility that we have to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, of my taxpayer dollars, as well as the community's taxpayer dollars, and ensuring the standard that we've set here in Carmel, because I think that is of critical importance. I made a decision to live in this community for a very specific reason, so that my child had the chance to have a high quality education, and he's had that, and we want to maintain that. And we know that delicate balance that we need to strike of being responsible stewards of the resource while maintaining the excellent reputation that we have. And this helps me better understand how we can sort of ensure that we're lining up all of those pieces and juggle all of those balls. So there isn't a specific question there, other than this is helpful to sort of absorb the information as we continue to go through the process. And the limited opportunities I've had so far to interact with some of the folks on your teams has been helpful, and I appreciate that opportunity and look forward to more of that as we continue to progress. So thanks for taking the time to be with us tonight.
I echo John's words. Thank you. I really appreciate, as we have as a board made it a focus of ours to align our strategic goals with every presentation we have. Having a presentation such as this, when the state has made it a priority to have work-based learning, showing how our students have these opportunities and are going into these types of fields, and then showing how it's paired up through our university system is very important, and it shows us that we're on the right track. So thank you for including that. That was very informative and helpful.
I just wanted to make a couple closing comments. I believe Skillman and Fannie Howey also support Carmel Education Foundation, which is very close to my heart. So appreciate your financial support as well as your participation in our Achieve initiative, and which again is related back to that promoting
different career pathways and work-based learning. So appreciated. Thank you again for coming, and I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we all learned a lot today, and it's a complex infrastructure that we build and maintain. And we've been here a number of decades, and our child went through this school, and it's been great to watch it all grow and to see how this all comes about. So I really appreciate all the information. The bad news is I do have questions. The good news is they're really simple questions, probably simple answers. So I'll try to keep it quick. Roger, you'd mentioned, I think, that the fees we typically see between the architect and construction manager combined is about 12%?
12, 13%.
12, 13. Is that typical
Yeah.
on these projects?
Yes, that's what I was saying. Professional fees, they're going to be in that range. There's not going to be somebody, if they're half the price, they're probably half as good. So the top players, it's not a matter of I likely would not make a decision on who's the lowest, provided the lowest fee, because they'll be close. And by the time you get to that, and $60 million, if it were $50,000 difference, you can see what I'm saying. But yes, that's going to be about the fee can range on the size of the project. A renovation project have more fees, particularly for the CM. And as opposed to if you build a brand new building out, and it's just more complicated, but that's kind of the range.
Next question is a sequence question of, like you have a complex project, let's say a major renovation at the high school, and how do you start with? Do you start with that we need to do a major renovation of the stadium or whatnot, and do you have an idea of what it costs, or do you start with the budget, like, we're able to acquire so much money in bonds, so let's find something to do? How would you describe the sequence?
I'll take a stab at that. In Carmel, use the stadium project as an example. We start out with, or if it's a school, oftentimes we call it educational specs. It's a little misleading on an athletic facility, but we start with a group of people that are involved. In this case, it would be the athletic people and principal and coaches and so forth, but people that are, focused on athletics and the needs and so forth. So we're developing an educational spec, which is communicates to the architect. They're like the designer who's listening and saying, okay, what do you want? Because their other client wants completely different. And this is where I'm very adamant about, I want our schools to be, I hesitate to use the word customized, but I'm going to use it, not because it's high priced, but it's customized to what we need. Our program, not somebody else's, not a pre-designed, pick one of these buildings, or do it at this price, but we start there. And the architect, so it starts there, the architect's listening. We start they develop what's called schematic design, and that's like a bubble diagram or something. It's like you start to get a sense of, well, there's 6 rooms or 2 rooms or whatever, very preliminary. And then Skillman, one of their responsibilities is to start the estimating process. So at that point, they're estimating on square footage, and very broad, and so they do have that background and expertise. So they have an idea of what square footage costs are, but there can be, just like building a house, you can have 2 houses, same square footage, and one of them costs twice as much as the other. And so, but they also know they understand our standards and so forth. But again, that comes into play when you are working with an experienced team. That's one of the members, and so you start to develop the preliminary cost, and we do that. Just did it, reflected tonight, because Smoky Row's a little different because we have one to copy off of with some cherry tree, but like Carmel Middle School, there had to be enough upfront work with these guys to give some. It's like chicken or egg. I've got to have some number to take to the board. And so it's, $14 million. And so, but usually, things haven't been usual for several years now, particularly since COVID, but because prices change so much and everything. But usually what happens is that'll tend to be a higher price, if anything. It'd be more likely to be high than low. Because if they're going to estimate, which at this point I'll just say is a good guess, they'd rather it not be low. But they know from working with me that they don't come and brag because it came in at 10% less, because they missed their estimate. Now, would I rather have it missed that way than the other way? Yes, but I don't want it missed at all because somebody didn't get something because we thought it was going to cost this much. So, but that's the process. Then you get into design drawings, and it's more and more detailed to finally get to the end, and you have final drawings, final estimates, put it out to bid, and these guys the estimate's usually going to be really just a matter of a very small percentage, one way or the other, because they're not necessarily targeting for the low bid. So some places they actually exclude the low bid and the high bid, and then they pick from the middle. But that's the process.
Okay, good, thanks. You know, I'm going to use an analogy of when you go out to dinner and you know, you get asked if you want an appetizer,
Yep.
you know, drinks and you know, salads and blah, 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 and adds on. Then, of course, at the end, there's always asked for the dessert, you know, and I'm thinking all along, well, this all impacts the tip. You know,
Yep.
if I'm only 20%, then that tip gets bigger. And how do we manage that? I mean, I would be incentivized, I would
Fees?
think. Yeah, if you're 12%, they know the bigger the
Sure.
project.
No,
the bigger.
that's a great question. So by law, under CM agency, I cannot work on a fee percentage. And so we are a fixed fee. And so as Victor talked about, when you have, that's why I pulled these up, because I want to back up. Sometimes we work because you have high expectations as a community, as an owner. Roger has high expectations of us. And so we often create more work for ourselves in order to, our team wants to please Carmel. That's their number one job. And so we often create a lot of work for ourselves, and this diagram reflects it, because once Roger has our contract, and once he has a fee for us for a certain amount of time, he has us. And so all of a sudden, we're halfway through the natatorium project, and some of the contingencies that we had in there for maybe unforeseen conditions and some of the other things that were under budget, now it frees up 2 other projects that we now have to get in on the same time. And Roger says, well, great job, Brad, Victor, you came in under budget. That gives me money to do that project, that project, that project, use that exact same team that we already have, and go do these other projects the same time you're doing this one. And so we don't get a tip. We work for wages.
But so how does that work when, you know, you mentioned there's a fee, 12 to 13% for the architect and construction manager, but it's fixed. I'm not,
Yeah.
can you help me understand that?
I will. So first, there was a time where years and years ago where they did work off of a percentage of construction, and both the architect and the CM, and the implications of that are just what you're thinking, and so was the state legislature. That's why they outlawed it. Now, having said that, it does, you know, the people we're working with, they're not oblivious. They have an idea of what it costs, say, to build an elementary school. And although they got fooled on the 2 that we built, and everybody did. But the point is so they go, well, you know, and they build a lot of other ones, right? And they know they're not all like Carmel, but they adjust and so forth. So they have an idea, and based on that idea, they go, and then they also know, particularly Skillman, the personnel that it takes to oversee a project, and so time is money. So if you have guys on site and it takes 6 more months to finish this project, and there's allowances for that, but you know, it costs more money. So they're doing all that, but so because people that we're talking about, they know what they're doing, and so they're going to be close, even though they start from like there is a price, and for their services. But it's a little bit like a lawyer. they're also building their price based on what they're projecting to be the time. And so a school that doesn't have, vinyl wall finish costs less money, but it may take as much time to build it. On the other hand, if it has the vinyl and it costs more money, it doesn't mean it's cost you more money to build it, right? So the cost is a factor, but they don't make twice the fee because of twice the cost. It's much more based on, let's say, like square footage and time and type and those kind of things, which they all know. Yeah. And so they don't stay in business and not be pretty good at it and not charge enough to, to come out more often than not on the right side up. But that is how it works.
I'll kind of combine two into one. We use the CMA approach for most of our projects. Is that what we see in similar districts in nearby? And the kind of a similar question to that is, do our sister districts typically use the same contractors like Skillman and Fannie?
Let me speak to
Yeah,
that
please, go
before you
ahead.
do.
Yeah.
Because I'm a bit opinionated on several things here. And so, as is clear, Carmel for a long time has used one CM, one architect. We have a neighbor that uses 7 CMs. 7. And 3 or 4 architects. Now, that makes people that you're getting, approached by happy. So they get their piece of the pie. And I know how this works. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. And it would be, life sometimes would be a lot easier if I'd give you a little business and give you a little business. And particularly you live in Carmel, right? Everybody lives in Carmel, it seems like. Whenever they come to talk to me, it's like, give me the business because I live here. And I go, I'm looking out after all the other taxpayers, not just you. And so, but anyway, so there's a lot of difference. And so this isn't a criticism of my neighbors. I want to keep saying that because it can sound that way. But we do things differently. And they do what they do, we do what we do. I'm proud of what we end up with, and I'm likely proud of what they end up with, different. And so, but on my part, trying to develop 7 teams and the relationship that I just described and have that also be efficient and effective is beyond my imagination. And I'm not saying I couldn't do it, but I'm saying I wouldn't choose to do it. But there are people that do. And so there is that even in, say, similar sized districts. Now, most of the districts, as you know, in Indiana are not Carmel. We're the 6th largest out of close to 400. So most of them, if I were in Elwood, I always pick on Elwood a little bit. If I were in Elwood and hadn't built a building maybe ever, and I'm the superintendent and I've got a couple people to help me and an administrative assistant, this design build or one of these other methods seems like a pretty good idea because they'll end up with a really nice school most likely. And so for the most part, we end up with things that I could, if I showed you another brand new building, you'd like it too. It'd be clean and nice and pretty and all that kind of stuff. But it may not have all that customization that we know we have. And I see, and other people that are here, that are involved, see those things. But my point is there's a place for all of this. And there's certainly room for different perspectives. And so I really pretty much never would say I'm right and they're wrong. I'm just saying this is how I do it. This is how I recommend it. And I just kind of stop there. So.
Can I ask one more question? This would be probably go to you. You'd mentioned about helping decide when do we fund a project with bonds or write out the operations fund. What criteria do we look at for that?
I'll answer that one too because
I tried.
Well, I know, and I'm trying too. Not hard enough apparently, but can't help it. I love this stuff. But when we talk operations, you're talking about paying for cash. So you can't do $50 million out of a fund that you get $50 million a year. Although we built 2 or 3 elementary schools in Carmel with cash. back in the days when the funding was better, things were different. But those days are gone. So when we talk about operations, we might do nowadays, we're looking to not do even a $500,000 project, let alone $5 million. So it's mostly operations is going to be more day-to-day, but we'll have a mechanical unit that will break, and schools in session, it's got to get fixed. And if it's $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $100,000, you got to fix it. So that's operations. This stuff that we spend a lot of time talking about is bond issue. More now than ever, and more to come probably, by the way.
One more. You'd mentioned early on, we talked about energy savings and solar panels. We had some questions this meeting before. Can you describe, or do you think we'll be using solar here in the near future, or how do
I don't think I'll be recommending solar myself in the near future. And the short as I can be reason why is that solar from a return on investment, you hear a lot of publicity again about HSE spent $3 million. They got a 10-year return on that investment because they're saving $300,000. My humble opinion is that that's not the return. That accounts for no value of the property. You think property in Carmel's free? No. So it's not free in HSE either. Now in Sheridan, where it's farm country and it's $4,000 or $5,000 an acre, again, different situation. So here, it's like, where are you going to put them? I believe that the current ROI is more in a 12 to 15-year range. It can be on a guaranteed contract, by the way, 20 years. 20 years, if you know anything about investments or finance, and I do. You should hope so. But that's not a good return. We can put money in the bank at 5 or 6% interest, and we will get return on that with guarantee. This isn't putting it in the stock market. We can get guaranteed return forever, not for 10 years or not for 20 when it wears out, forever. Why would we, from a finance standpoint? I'm going to save the world here and talk about that in a minute, but from a finance standpoint, that is not a good investment. That and geothermal are the two most, they have the poorest return on investment of any energy saving effort that you would make. We do stuff every day. They'll tell you, but.
Could you give a handful of some things that the
Well,
district does?
small things are, we do a project and when we get finished with Cherry Tree, yeah, you guys, now you can talk.
Well, LED lighting is by far the best investment, and I've heard engineers talk about 2 to 3 year turnaround, and of course quality of the space too. All of our HVAC systems are continuing to get more and more energy efficient, and so every one of these projects we're doing, we're updating, replacing, revising mechanical systems, Smoky Row, middle school.
Those 11 Energy Star schools, to qualify for an Energy Star, you have to be in the top 25%. We're more likely in the top 10%. You don't get there and be energy inefficient. It's Energy Star, right? It's about energy. So, and you don't get a national green ribbon if you're not sensitive about sustainability in the earth and all those things. We just don't brag about it enough.
Roger, I do think we need to brag a little bit more, although there are certainly sustainability things outside of energy. You know, I do for a living.
Yes.
Utility scale solar.
Yep.
I don't think, respectfully, your statements on ROI are with the most up-to-date data. Maybe 10 years ago what you said is true. I don't think it's true now. Let me finish. But that said, I guess the question I have that leans into that is, you know, when do we look at that in a real life situation? And because what you're describing, doesn't take into account that Duke and AES's rates are going up every year significantly. Generally, ROI calculations are based on a flat payment for the school district for energy. And it isn't flat, it's going up, which makes your ROI over time better. So if you looked at the ROI 10 years ago or 5 years ago, it's going to be better now than it was. It also doesn't take into account the 30% tax rebate that schools can get. But that said, I guess one thing that I'd like the administration and our team to think about is when is there an opportunity for the students that learn in these buildings every day, the parents that volunteer every day, the teachers and staff that work in these buildings every day? Where is their ability to input during the process of building a new school or completely rehauling a new school? When are we taking their everyday experiences in these buildings into account? And when are we talking to them about what their world is going to look like when these projects actually start construction? Because I think perhaps we could do a better job of that, both during planning, because nobody in this room, including me, is in those buildings every single day like those people are. And it seems like all the decisions are made and then we tell the public that it's happening and nobody pays attention to it until the construction starts, right? And they have to drive around it and they get cranky. So, how can we do that part of this a little bit better? Not so much a question, but more of a, thinking about how we do things in a transparent and collaborative way with the community.
I think that's probably an Amy question, but I want to go back just to make a comment about the assumptions on solar. The HSE project that I used as an example was a recent project, wasn't 10 years ago. It did include any savings the 30% and all of that at the end of the day. It did not, I won't know the details of it, but the people that are promoting solar are the ones that said it was a 10-year payback. It wasn't me. What I'm saying is what I am doing is when I take their data, their 10-year statement, and say, well, what about the value of the property? What about the maintenance of these? There's not huge maintenance, but they have maintenance. And what about the so you had these additional costs that kick that 10% up, and so again, I don't know whether they accounted for inflation. I think I would if most
They
people
probably
recognize.
didn't. It's hard to forecast utility
What I'm
rates
saying
in
is-
your defense.
I'm
but
just saying that I'm taking the data from the solar advocates, and they're saying
Right,
it's
but
10
the other
years,
thing
and I'm saying it's more than that.
Right. The other thing I was thinking about as well, Roger, is the reason why we're different as schools, and we've talked from time to time about how we have lots of
Right.
outages in Carmel. We can't have school if we don't have electricity. If you have solar paired with a battery, which also, like solar, is becoming increasingly affordable and having a better return on investment, you can keep a school open for half a day when there's no power. And we can't do that now.
We
And
can, we
it's-
do it with a generator.
If we have a generator.
We have a
inside.
generator.
Does every building have a generator?
I don't know specifically
can
of every one of them.
Do the
Certainly our
entire
major-
building?
Or not the entire building.
Yeah.
Or we have, and we don't need it in the entire building typically because it's usually daylight when we're having school, but we do have generators, I believe, in every building. If not, they're planned for every building, including this one. And so we do have an alternative to that. And I'm not here to debate solar. I'm just saying that it's a larger issue. It's one method for energy conservation. And there are the critics of that, by the way, that it's not necessarily, it's clean energy, but what do you do with all these thousands and thousands of panels? And so there is that. So it's a larger issue. It's just not one that we've used. But it's not that we're unaware of it and we've not predetermined. It's not a matter of predetermining. It starts with where do we put it? And if property's if we don't need property, we don't have a lot of grass around here we don't use, right? And so if we didn't need it, we put solar panels on it, then if we sold it for the X amount per acre and added that to the investment, that's where I'm saying it's more than 10%. And so from a dollar standpoint, there's other factors that we consider, as you do, about sustainability and so forth, besides just the money. But we are using taxpayer money. So we have propane buses and so forth. So we have other areas of examples where we're sensitive about that. This doesn't happen to be one of them.
And so, Chris, to answer your question about, or at least to talk about your question about the when do we involve the public, when do we involve the teachers? So before we built the 2 elementary schools, we very much engaged all stakeholders into that design process. We looked at We had meetings here with the school board to say, what is it that they're looking for as far as in a building? We met with groups of teachers, individual groups of teachers, saying, what does the design need to look like for the educational piece of it? We also had parent meetings on the design and what are they looking for. So that was before, when we did a whole, brand new 2 elementary schools. We had those conversations. And then like at the high school, the design is directly aligned with the programming. So for example, the Polytech area with the commercial kitchen, because it changed very much, the programming changed from having home ec, where you had that 1970s kitchen, to having a very much a commercial kitchen, because that's what the culinary programming looked like. And so that's what helped us to design those areas in the high school. And the same for when we look at the trades, the building trades areas, and the different pathways that we have. So those are all directly supporting where we are going academically with those design pieces.
Thanks, that's helpful.
All right, thank you very much. This was great. We appreciate your time and your expertise. We're just gonna stay here.
Yeah, we'll stay, let's just stay here and
Just stay
finish
here.
it out.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess next up is your report, your superintendent's report.
All right, well, first of all, Belvia, Lindsay, Brad, Victor, thank you so much for being here. The time you took to put tonight's presentation together, as the board shared, very helpful, very educational. Lindsay probably hates when I say this, but when I was a first-year teacher, Lindsay was a student of mine at Eastwood Middle School back in the day, and so very proud of you and the work you do on behalf of Carmel Clay Schools, so just wanted to say thank you. And then finally, a special thank you to Roger. Roger, for the past 30 years, you have put this district in such a great place financially and as well as planning and our schools and our buildings here, and I just want to say thank you for all you do. Not just your expertise, but saving the district and the community money, and moving forward, looking into how we can continue to effectively utilize taxpayer dollars while keeping those educational programs strong for our children here in the community. So well done, and thank you very much. So today's superintendent report, we have a couple of exciting opportunities for our community coming up. The first is brand new. On November 13th, Thursday, from 4:30 to 6 o'clock, we are going to have Kindergarten Connection Day at every single elementary school across the district. So parents who are interested in learning about Carmel Clay Schools and who have kids coming into kindergarten, every single school will be open. If there are people that are in the area and want to move into the district and don't know where to move, they can check out the different elementary schools to see what would be a great fit. They'll get tours of the building, they can go into classrooms, talk with our Carmel Clay School employees. So it's going to be a phenomenal opportunity for our incoming kindergarten families, so do not miss it. In addition to that, we're going to have our Carmel High School open house once again. That'll be on Sunday, November 2nd, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., and that is anyone in the community. If you're a parent with an incoming freshman, if you're a fifth grade parent, you want to know more about Carmel High School, bring the whole family in. If you're shopping schools and you want to see what the best fit is for you and your family and you live in Carmel, come check out Carmel High School. And you heard a ton of great opportunities that are available to your children here tonight. Come check us out. If you're a retiree in the community and you want to see, hey, I want to check out that new facility, I want to see what programs we're doing with work-based learning and career technical education and Polytechnic, come to Carmel High School November 2nd from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Additionally, I want to give a bit of a sports update. Yeah, I lost my voice cheering on the girls soccer team at the sectional championship in Zionsville on Saturday night. And they won. I'll talk to you about that. But to everyone around this table, to Mr. Inskeet, Mr. Hester, the Carmel Swim Club, all of our volunteers, the World Aquatics World Cup at the Carmel High School was spectacular. Whether you watched it on NBC on Sunday, on national NBC, whether you were there, we had world-class athletes from all over the world, and their feedback about the Carmel High School natatorium was just phenomenal. And so thank you all for being a part of that. Carmel, the city of Carmel certainly knows how to host a world-class event as well as Carmel High School. So we appreciate the mayor, the city of Carmel, and all of you for your partnership on that. Girls golf, they finished 4th in state. We're very proud of our girls golf team. Also, we had Maya Fujisawa Keeling, finished 3rd overall in state. And then Karis Reed earned all state honors as well, finishing in the top 25 of all golfers. Maya and Karis are freshmen, and so the future is bright with Carmel High School girls golf. So we're excited about that. Carmel tennis made it to state. We have the state quarterfinals that will take place on Friday at 10 a.m. And then when Carmel wins, Avon Superintendent, when Carmel wins, they'll head to the semifinals and the Final Four, and then to the championship, and we hope to bring back a state championship this weekend. Soccer, as I mentioned, both boys and girls, they had the toughest sectional. Our girls beat the number 4 team in state, the number 5 team in state, and the number 10 team in state to win the sectional championship. The boys had a similar path. They're both going on. I think the girls play tomorrow at Murray Stadium here at Carmel High School, and then the boys play on Thursday in the regional semifinal, and then the regional final, and then heading to semi-state. Volleyball is set, no pun intended, to kick things off here on Saturday in the sectional. Cross country has sectionals coming up this Saturday at North Central High School. And then football, ranked number 2 in the state of Indiana right now. We received the sectional draw. We play Harrison at home. And then when we move on, then we either get Westfield or Zionsville. So looking forward to competing against our neighbors in football as well coming up. And then, oh my gosh, Unified Flag Football. They won a couple games in the sectional, but came up a little bit short. And then Unified Bocce. If you've not been to Unified Sports, you have to attend. Unified Bocce was incredible. I attended that. Just the positivity, the sportsmanship, the competition. It made me want to get out there and play bocce. I've never played bocce before, but the kids were having an absolute blast, and it was so fun. They finished top 10 in state as well in Unified Bocce. So lots of excitement going on around Carmel High School sports right now. And then the bell ringer for tonight. I'm from Milwaukee, so we have a bit of a game tonight, so let's jump right to the bell ringer. Congratulations to Henry Joliet, a 2025 U.S. Presidential Scholar from Carmel High School. He's an alum now that was named a Presidential Scholar. This prestigious national honor recognizes the nation's top high school seniors, including 1 male and 1 female scholar from each state. Henry joins a remarkable tradition of Carmel excellence. Carmel High School has celebrated a U.S. Presidential Scholar every year since 2021. And if you just think about that, that's just incredible, including Carmel High School had both honorees back in 2023. So now Henry's a freshman at the University of Michigan. He's pursuing a bachelor's in business administration with a minor in history, while also gaining hands-on experience through the MECC Consulting Group. We're so proud of Henry and all of our past scholars for representing Carmel Clay Schools with excellence. And that concludes tonight's superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn? No.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? Second. The meeting adjourned.
Was the bocce ball televised? Wasn't on the Ocho?
Gotta sign my life away. Gotta sign the bond issuance.